Who owns the ocean? After 15 years of negotiations, member countries of the United Nations recently made a legally binding pact to put 30% of the world's high seas under protection by 2030.
Ladies and gentlemen, the ship has reached the shore.
A big reason for doing that is that the question of who owns the majority of the world's ocean is hard to answer because it's kind of everyone and no one. The ocean makes up 71% of the planet, and it's a valuable resource full of raw materials like oil and gas and food sources. It also provides important pathways for shipping. That's why in 1982, the UN created the Convention on the Law of the Sea. It established an international legal framework on ocean activity, including setting territorial boundaries to around 22 kilometres out from a country's coast, which basically makes it an extension of a country's land territory and gives it the power to use, protect and defend that area. The Law of the Sea also defines exclusive economic zones, which extend a country's boundary to around 370 k's offshore for exclusive use of all resources found there. Beyond that are the high seas, also known as the Wild West of the ocean.
States control the waters 200 miles offshore, and after that it's the Wild West. This massive expansion that covers our blue planet is without law.
More officially, the high seas are known as international waters, which are areas beyond national jurisdiction.
So that's the part of the oceans that don't belong to any particular country. And historically, there's been no regulation of the high seas.
And they're big. The high seas make up about 2/3 of the ocean, covering about half the planet.
And importantly, from the perspective of marine life, the high seas are 95% of the available living space on Earth. So this is really a huge area.
For a long time, the high seas have been considered so remote that they're protected from human impact. But that's changing over time. And without regulation, the marine environment is already suffering from things like overfishing, mining, and pollution.
So far, our oceans are suffering. So we're seeing huge amounts of ocean acidification. With warming oceans, we're seeing huge amounts of plastic pollution. 10% of the wildlife in our oceans is at risk of extinction.
There is a lot of destruction going on in the world's oceans. 90% of the big fish are gone. You know what's happened to the whales. This is why we need to start urgently putting something back in the way of areas that humans cannot exploit.
Under the new High Seas Treaty, huge marine protected areas, or MPAs, will be created to help protect 30% of the high seas over the next few years.
It is now up to countries to propose big marine protected areas to cover the most important and most biodiverse areas of the ocean, like the Sargasso Sea. People will know all about that because of the eels that go to breed there.
Oh yeah, the eels. Actually, I don't really know what the eels are or the Sargasso Sea. The Sargasso Sea and its famous eels are here in the Atlantic Ocean. It's a huge area of the high seas that's home to a unique variety of marine species, making it particularly important to protect. Those species also include these critically endangered European eels, which spend more than a year migrating from rivers and streams all the way to the Sargasso Sea to breed. Another example is the Lost City in the North Atlantic.
A very special, unusual area offshore. Scientists say we could learn about the origins of life on Earth from this place because it's got unique hydrothermal vents, boiling waters, very unusual species, and right now it's unprotected and of interest, potentially to deep sea mining.
The treaty will also establish laws around the sharing of any genetic resources discovered in the high seas.
Well, we've seen it with the world's forests. Over time, we've discovered more and more really incredibly important biological material that's gone into some of our most important medical innovations, for example. Now the high seas is very sort of underexplored, and so there's been a real race on to who gets to own that genetic material that's discovered for the first time in the world's oceans.
In other words, who makes the money if something like a sponge is found to have enormous commercial properties as a medicine? This is the inheritance of the whole of mankind. So how is that shared out? These are the issues that they had to wrestle with.
The treaty will also hold its members accountable to make sure they're doing their best to protect that huge and unique part of the ocean.